While foreign powers tout the freshly signed UN resolution as their greatest breakthrough since the beginning of Syria's civil war, Human Rights Watch says the order to destroy all chemical arsenal failed to deliver justice to the conflict's victims. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani returns home to a mixed welcome after his historic call with US counterpart Barack Obama. Demonstrators threw a shoe at his motorcade in a clear sign of scorn at his attempts to reset diplomatic relations between the two countries. And escalating the government crackdown on extreme right party Golden Dawn, Greek police arrest its leader and other top members. This in response to the fatal stabbing of a left-leaning rapper last week, a crime allegedly committed by a party supporter. Hello, I'm Nadia Sharbi. Thank you for watching France 24. A day after the UN Security Council adopted a hard-won resolution demanding the eradication of Syria's chemical weapons, NGO Human Rights Watch is already pointing to its limitations. The decision doesn't threaten punitive action against President Assad's government in case of non-compliance, nor does it make any mention of accountability following the August 21st gas attack that sparked this international response. In fact, the NGO is renewing its call for the UN to refer the situation to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, saying Friday's resolution fails to ensure justice for the victims. We're joined now from New York by Human Rights Watch's UN representative, Philippe Bolopion. Hello, thank you for being with us. The Council members present this as the greatest diplomatic breakthrough in over 2.5 years of war. Was no deal better than this deal?
Well, look, it's certainly a positive development that we welcome, but for us it falls far short of the mark. If you want to really enforce a ban on the use of chemical weapons, it's not enough to just take them away, confiscate them once they have been used. You also need to punish those who press the chemical button. And sadly, this resolution does not do that. The only way to do it would be for the Security Council to refer the situation in Syria to the International Criminal Court. The court could investigate the Ghouta attack, the chemical attack of August 21st, but also all the very serious crimes that have been committed over the last 2.5 years by any party to the conflict.
That's right, because so far there's no concrete evidence of who is behind that August 21st attack. So how would the International Criminal Court go about that investigation?
Well, I mean, that's its job, but I actually disagree that there is not much evidence. There is, in fact, a mountain of evidence pointing to the responsibility of the Syrian government. We have done our own homework, our own investigation, and concluded that the government is almost certainly responsible for this attack. The UN investigators, produced also a report which had many more clues pointing, when you look at them closely, to the responsibility by the government. So there is little doubt in our mind that the Syrian government is responsible, and we conclude this without even being able to go on the ground. If the ICC was to investigate and use all the tools at its disposal, we have very little doubt that they would come to the same conclusion pretty easily. And
are sanctions also something you're calling for?
Definitely. I mean, the overwhelming majority of the killing in Syria, of the 100,000 people who have been killed in Syria over 2.5 years, have died at the hands of conventional weapons, not chemical weapons. And the conventional weapons killing goes on, it continues. So we believe that it's time for the UN Security Council to impose an arms embargo on the government and to sanction Syrian officials who have been involved in very serious violations. So at least you send a signal that they will have to pay a price for continued crimes against civilians.
Philippe Bolopion, thank you very much for having talked to us. Thank you. Now, as he returned home from the US to Iran, having broken a decades-long taboo, no doubt President Hassan Rouhani knew he'd be welcomed with mixed feelings. But he perhaps did not anticipate such immediate and public criticism. In a radical sign of disdain, a shoe was reportedly thrown at the Iranian leader's motorcade this Saturday, an insult that offers a clear indication of the more hardline response to his efforts to rekindle diplomatic relations with the United States. Hala Mohideen tells us more.
An historic phone call ending 34 years of silence between the leaders of Iran and the United States.
Good afternoon, everybody. The two of us discussed our ongoing efforts to reach an agreement over Iran's nuclear program. I reiterated to President Rouhani what I said in New York. while there will surely be important obstacles to moving forward, and success is by no means guaranteed, I believe we can reach a comprehensive solution.
That any solution to the diplomatic impasse is even possible is the result of a week of grand gestures from Iran. Diplomats across the board have reported a marked shift in tone from the new Iranian regime, and this conciliatory rhetoric continued from President Rouhani at his press conference on Friday.
We clearly say that we remain strongly committed to international law, including the Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Safeguards Agreement. We say explicitly that we will be transparent. We say explicitly that we do not seek a bomb.
Even in Tehran, amongst traditional anti-American chants, voices of moderation are emerging.
We want to show the world that we're honest in our goodwill. So if the Americans take one step forward, we'll take two, so that we can achieve a result.
Parallel to the diplomacy in New York, very constructive talks, in the words of the UN Atomic Agency, in Vienna. They announced a new round of substantive discussions in October, where the true extent of Iran's commitment to resolve the deadlock will become apparent.
A criminal rather than a political force. That's how the Greek government has clearly chosen to treat far-right party Golden Dawn, just over a week after the fatal stabbing of a music artist, allegedly by one of the party's supporters. This Saturday, police arrested at least 17 Golden Dawn members, including party leader Nikos Mikalosliakos, the group's spokesman, and 3 other lawmakers. It's the first arrest of sitting members of parliament in almost 40 years. A little earlier, we spoke to our Athens correspondent Natalie Severikis, who began by telling us more about how the Greek government justifies such a rare and radical move.
It is indeed a very rare move. It is the severest crackdown on a political party since the fall of the junta in 1974, Nadia. And the way the government justifies it is essentially because the offences that have been linked to the party leader, other lawmakers of the party and members of Golden Dawn are so severe. They include murder, attempted murder, blackmail, money laundering, and the sorts. So that's how the government justifies it. Of course, it has handed the entire dossier to the judiciary in a move that many here see that they want to absolve themselves of any political responsibility and of any political motive, that this is clearly a legal case that is being put forward in the courts of law. And indeed, just in a few minutes, members of Golden Dawn as well as the lawmakers are set to appear before the prosecutors in Athens here today.
But again, Natalie, these are elected members of parliament. Doesn't such a heavy-handed response risk playing into Golden Dawn's claims of victimisation? How is the party responding, in fact?
Well, indeed, what we've had is the party has immediately on its website posted that this is an organized plan by the bailout parties. It's saying that this is an attack on them because of their recent skyrocketing popularity, really, Nadia, and that the authorities here and the mainstream parties were very fearful of the elections, especially the municipal elections that were set to take place next year. And we're fearing that Golden Dawn might actually be at the helm of the Athens town hall. So that's the way the party is reacting. What we saw earlier today, and actually they're still there, is hundreds of supporters of Golden Dawn and members outside the police headquarters in the city center, raising Greek flags and chanting slogans of the party, blood, honor, Golden Dawn, as it goes. The Greeks here, the public opinion is still very much digesting all of this. It remains to be seen how all of this will go down.
In other world news, the death toll from the collapse of a Mumbai apartment block has jumped to 45 and is expected to climb further as rescue efforts continue into the night. Following Friday's 5-story cave-in, at least 11 people are still unaccounted for, and so far 33 have been pulled out of the rubble alive, the latest being a 40-year-old man who was rescued on Saturday afternoon. A new and powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake has hit southwest Pakistan this Saturday, killing at least 12 people. This just 4 days after a 7.7 magnitude tremor devastated the very same region, leaving more than 300 people dead. William Hildebrand has the latest.
4 days after a deadly earthquake, another strikes Baluchistan and complicates relief efforts. The two quakes have left more than 100,000 people homeless in one of Pakistan's poorest and most remote regions. Authorities are trying to navigate a scattered population spanning more than 21,000 kilometers that has few roads and fewer medical facilities.
Too many houses have collapsed because of how they were made. The weather is hot, so we're trying to send people tents and other necessary things. And we've had difficulties because of the road network.
Pakistan's military has taken to airdropping aid. This C-130 is packed with 20,000 ready-to-eat meals. Earlier in the day, 2 other cargo planes carried a total of 70 tons of relief. But separatist rebels in the area are hampering efforts. They allegedly shot at 2 different helicopters, including one carrying the head of Pakistan's disaster management agency.
We are inviting the Baluchistan militants to come and talk to us. Attacking rescue team is not fair. The militants should cease fire.
The Interior Ministry said it has struggled to reach some areas, but pledged to send another 14,000 tents. But there are reports of some survivors who have yet to receive any aid and who have had to sift through rubble to find food.
Military sources in Mali say 2 suicide bombers have let off explosives in a car in front of a military camp in the northern desert city of Timbuktu. The assailants are reported killed, and at least 2 civilians also died in the blast. The United Nations MINUSMA peacekeeping mission has confirmed the attack. The camp is now said to be in a state of high alert. Voters in Guinea have taken to the polls this Saturday to cast their ballot in the first parliamentary elections for more than a decade. After months of delays and a campaign plagued by deadly unrest and accusations of planned vote rigging, Ghanaians are choosing between more than 1,700 candidates vying for the National Assembly's 114 seats. Those elected will replace the transitional parliament that's been running the country since military rule came to an end in 2010. Now, as Kenyan authorities are under mounting pressure to act following the deadly attack against a Nairobi mall, questions remain over the fate of those still missing, and top brass are standing accused of having failed to heed security warnings. President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration is facing tough questions after the leaking of an intelligence report dated September 13th. It warned of an elevated risk, an alert some top security officials say was treated too casually. Our correspondent Duncan Woodside sends us this report.
Investigators, including international investigators, continue to sift their way through the wreckage at the scene, looking for forensic clues as to the identity of the attackers, also looking to extract victims buried under the rubble and to establish exactly what happened inside the building. Of course, the building, or much of the building, did collapse during the later stages of the siege, and we're hearing now from several sources that the collapse was due not to a fire started by the militants, but by the Kenyan security services using heavy weaponry inside the building. Now, the Kenyan government and the security services have not confirmed that. They've not acknowledged that may be the case. They're also remaining tight-lipped about the possibility that some of the hostage takers, some of the attackers may have escaped with civilians who were fleeing on Saturday, disguised as civilians. They're also not commenting on whether any of the people arrested, any of the suspects arrested, are operatives from within inside the building. So a lot of questions still to answer by the Kenyan authorities, including also an alleged failure, or whether there was a failure by the police and the army elite units from both, allegedly failing to work together. All of these questions and others, including alleged intelligence failures leading up to the attack, will need to be answered, and there will be a parliamentary select committee hearing next week at which chiefs from the security services, the police and the military are expected to be grilled.
And on that we leave this edition. Stay tuned to France 24.
Every week, France 24 invites you backstage into the fascinating world of fashion. Discover the latest trends, controversies, and the big business of this booming industry. Take a front row seat at the collections. Discover all the hotter dresses. Fashion. Every Thursday, 5:15 p.m. Paris time on France 24.